Hey, welcome back to the Iron Tequila Podcast, where we're continuing our second installment on our series, The 5 Truths Men Must Know Now. And today we're talking about the second step, the second installment of this series. You're not weak for struggling, you're weak for hiding it. And, let's face it, Jordan, we all face battles mentally, emotionally, financially, and bottling it up and pretending it doesn't exist, stuffing it down.
Men are good at that.
Men are good at that. We're the best.
Compartmentalizing and not paying attention to until it blows up.
Exactly.
I'm an expert.
You're right. It's a losing battle.
Really
because that's what it does. It ends up blowing up on you.
Yep. I'm Jordan. This is Tequila Poppy. Welcome. We're glad you're here. This is going to be a lot of fun today.
Yeah. We're going to talk about dealing with struggles, and we've come to find through our journeys that strong men confront their struggles, they adapt to them, and they overcome them. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. The theme for our lives here is improvement. We're not here to just maintain the status quo. And part of that is owning your own stuff, right?
Yeah, you gotta own your shit.
Owning your own stuff, though, again, generally to us as individuals, especially men, it feels weak. It feels like we're, not good enough.
It's uncomfortable.
Extremely uncomfortable. We feel judged. We feel to the point where we can't do anything right.
We're criticized.
Completely. Hiding away from that is going to continue the problem.
Yeah, it just a self-manifestation of the problem, and it only makes it, by ignoring it, it's like any problem. By ignoring a problem, it just gets bigger.
Yes, it does.
If your car is running out of gas and your gas light comes on and you just ignore it, what's going to happen?
Yep. You're stuck.
Eventually, you're going to be stuck.
Yep. You got to restart, and that's pretty painful as well. The restarting process. So the lies that we're talking about here, they're just a denial of the truth when it comes down to it, and it really ends up being a mask. We all put on airs, if you will. High school is probably the place that most of that starts. Maybe grade school. I don't know. The demands on that stuff are inching up in age, to where we have 10-year-olds who are having sex education at school, and they don't have any clue who they are, let alone how the body works and how they're supposed to integrate their feelings. Fuck. So in that process, though, the struggle is not the concern. The desire to appear strong when we're weak is the biggest concern here. So, being honest, right?
Well, it's one of the biggest lies men tell themselves is that, showing weakness is a death sentence in society, in societal norms.
It is.
It's a death sentence in relationships, at work. It's frowned upon and discouraged.
Yeah.
To demonstrate weakness.
In certain circumstances, it can be seen as a positive thing, like in a personal relationship, for example. But by and large, I agree completely. We show weakness as men, and we're going to get stepped on. Our ego is going to get crushed. Somebody who doesn't care how we feel, doesn't care where we're going, they're going to take control, and we get run over at that point.
Pretty darn quick. And so today we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to build resiliency, to deal with struggles that, let's face it, we're all faced with struggles on a daily basis. And there's no shame in admitting it, but you can do it in a tactful way that preserves your masculinity, preserves your status in your community.
Yeah. So let's get into that one right there. How do we admit weakness and still maintain our status?
Well, I think there's a societal movement these days to encourage men to admit their weaknesses, to admit their faults, and to be deprecating. I don't know. You watch a lot of comedians these days. It's one of the most common shticks. Is to be self-deprecating and to get some laughs and stuff. But at the end of the day, it erodes your masculinity. It erodes your confidence, your status in the community, your relationship, how you're perceived by your wife or your girlfriend, your significant other. You don't want to be perceived as weak. So how do we deal with those struggles that we're all facing without the adverse side effect of being perceived as weak?
Open conversation, depending on the circumstances. Well, okay, let's break this up into personal relationships and then work. Let's contrast those. Because work, if you do the same thing that you do as in a personal relationship, sorry, man, you might get fired.
Yeah.
You might not have a position when you're done with the day.
Well, I think that's a very valid point, Jordan. We're, there's some situational awareness that needs to occur.
There you go.
With how you respond to a struggle, we can call them struggles, frustrations, inconveniences, irritants,
challenges. My biggest, my favorite.
Yeah. For the purposes of this conversation, let's just kind of consider them all the same thing.
Sure. We can do that.
And but you're right. The situational awareness is important because there's a right time and a right place, a time and a place for dealing with some of these things, and you want to be a little self-aware of your time and your place when you're dealing with these challenges.
One of the keys there, and I like to give as many actionable items as possible, but one of the keys there to me is a disconnect between input and reaction. Okay, and a lot of that it leads directly back to appearing weak, because if I don't have an answer ready to go, I seem like I'm unprepared. Okay, I've been in sales all my life.
Yeah,
you've been in sales long time as well.
Yeah.
And the process there from a sales perspective is know it all. Be the expert. At the same time, when a chink in the armor is revealed and it's been lied about, all credibility is out the window.
Yeah, and once you lose credibility, especially in sales, you're done.
So that leads back directly to we're not weak for struggling, we're weak for hiding it. And we lose in sales games. Oh man, a turnover, a TO. If you're in sales, you know what that is. If you lose a sale and you haven't brought in a TO, sometimes you're going to be written up. I mean, car sales in particular. Man, you bring in a manager. I don't care if they're running off the lot. You bring in a manager. And you got to face your weakness there. If you don't, you're not going to have a job.
Yeah, and even more significantly, you're not going to get a paycheck either. Right?
Yeah,
you're not going to feed.
Screw the job. I want to pay my bills.
You got to go home to your wife and tell her, "Sorry, honey, I didn't bring home any money today.
Yep. The bacon's still out there.
I screwed it up. I was at work for 12 hours and didn't produce a thing."
So, facing that, owning it, is the entry point to me. And that's removing the mask.
Yeah. The mask can be a comfortable place. For a lot of men wear masks, a lot of people, but men in particular, are really good at wearing masks in public, right? You leave the house, you got to put on a strong facade, put on a mask and face the world. And, that's kind of, I view that as a short-term fix. You're not really changing the problem.
Just kicking the can down the road?
You're just kicking the can down the road, and you're not finding solutions. And so what we want to talk about today are some different strategies, some different ways that you can deal with challenges. Again, we all face them. and having challenges is not a weakness. I would argue even kicking the can down the road and not facing the challenge is a weakness.
Yeah.
You're being somewhat, dare I say, a coward by not facing your challenges. And we've talked about this before on the show, Jordan, that iron sharpens iron. Iron is forged in fire, and diamonds are made under pressure. So it's often much more beneficial to face a challenge, overcome it, and then build from there.
Yep. The entry point there to me is momentum. We talked about this the other day with the dip. Seth Godin, if you're not familiar with who he is, we'll put his stuff in the show notes here. But the concept is along beginner's luck, and once beginners start to face the realities of their endeavor, they start to overthink it, and all of a sudden, the mask comes out. I need to appear better than I am. Right, I'm weak at this endeavor. Right, athletics as children is a great example. You pick up a baseball bat and you want to be able to hit it over the wall, just like the big leaguers do. If you don't know what you're doing, you appear weak. You eventually quit, is what ends up happening. And it's a not a healthy position, not a healthy place to be in. What's the opposite of that? Ownership, really.
Well, it's we talked about this on past shows. The importance of self-assessment and becoming aware of your challenges and your participation, your shortcomings in dealing with the challenges. My participation.
Tell me more about that. Well, I think I know where you're going, but tell me more about it.
I'm a firm believer is that we're largely we're all responsible for our own outcomes. And so if we want to achieve something, it's the amount of effort, the amount of input will dictate the output, the results.
Yeah.
And so if you're demonstrating weakness, for example, and that limits your input, it's going to have a dramatic effect on your output.
Yeah, that's for damn sure.
And so it's incumbent upon us as individuals, as men, to discover some self-assessment, self-realization, what our weaknesses are and what our contributions in the form of limitations into a problem are, and so that we can head them off before they become additional challenges in the problem that we're already trying to resolve.
Right. So one major concern that a lot of people face, guys in particular, we don't have the perspective of females. We don't anyway. And that is, how do we cultivate, I love that word, by the way, how do we cultivate a forward-looking perspective and mentality as opposed to ruminating or bringing up the past repeatedly and, striving for that strength presentation as opposed to working my butt off and growing through failure?
Well, this reminds me of one of my favorite sayings of all times, and that is, and I don't remember who said it, but it goes something like this: if you always do what you always did, you're always going to get what you always got. Yep. So what that means is, if you continue on the same path that you've always been on, it's kind of the definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
Right.
Well, you're always going to get the same results that you always gotten.
Yep.
So to answer your question, I think the first step is really to identify the problem.
Okay.
And that often, with respect to what we're talking about today, facing personal struggles, it often involves initially a self-assessment that is very uncomfortable for men to conduct.
Anybody, men in particular.
Anybody, for sure. But I've talked to countless people over the years who have never taken the time to conduct a personal self-assessment, an inventory of their strengths and weaknesses.
And there are things out there, tools like a SWOT analysis.
SWOT analysis,
business, right? Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, Yeah. Then there's the big 5 personality traits. Jordan Peterson is big on that, right? There's Gaines profiles. There's the Giver's Gain. I mean, there's dozens of them out there. There's a lot that are free. We're working on a few. I don't know if they're going to be up right now, but the website, irontequila.com, we'll have that in the show notes here. But the question that pops up for me most of the time here is that, this poison, if you will, in a mask form, has infiltrated our belief system, a scaffolding, if you will. How can we start to disassemble that scaffolding and reformat our beliefs to include that it's okay to be weak?
Well, we're not suggesting it's okay to be weak.
Thank you. Clarify there. Right.
We're suggesting it's okay to have challenges, but a strong man, truly strong men, overcome weaknesses. They overcome challenges, and so our goal here is to encourage our audience to pursue paths that will build and develop strengths.
So we can take that mask off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have to be walking around in public with a mask on, hiding weaknesses and
literally or figuratively.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Well, some of you should be. I've seen some of you. You should be wearing a mask. But no, we our goal here is to build strong men, confident men. Men who are reality based,
right?
And I think that's an important thing to talk about is being reality based. Hey, if you're a screw up, it's okay to realize that, because that's the first step in taking, implementing a plan to develop the skills that are necessary to. Dig yourself out of that hole.
Stop digging.
Well, first step is to stop digging.
Stop digging, please. Then let's figure out how deep the hole is.
Yeah.
Right? And who is available to help within that process.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's a lot of opportunities for guys these days to find help. Who are some of the people? What are some of the things you do to look to seek guidance? And assistance with challenges you have?
I have a big library, personally. When I was a kid, my dad taught me that we can stand on the shoulders of giants. That's one of the favorite perspectives I like to take in the world, is that other people have done this stuff before. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to go and try to dig up information that is out there and available.
Yeah.
But once I do find it, I'm not going to stick to it and pretend it's my shield. I'm going to go verify it, and do some actual investigation to make sure that my authenticity, integrity stays in place to begin with.
We talked about this in the first episode of this series.
No one's coming to save you.
Yeah, that nobody's coming to save you, and the importance of self-awareness and identifying the challenges that you face personally and internally.
Yeah,
and overcoming them before, so they're not an impediment to your development, your personal development.
But these can be big. I mean, like personal foundational monsters that we've got to overcome.
Yeah.
The
type that have developed and been reinforced over the course of 20, 30, 40
50,
years.
60 years.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are in life and how motivated you are to reform and reinvent yourself.
And that's no small challenge
No,
to
that's
overcome
no joke, man. Yeah.
decades worth of bad habits, really.
And it sucks, but we got to be honest here. This is going to be painful. This is going and reinventing yourself. I mean, not only does iron sharpen iron, but we've got to step into that fire before we can start that reformation process and be sharpened. So you asked me, what do I do? How do I figure that out? Men's groups, book clubs. Okay. I started to go through this process after my mom died, where if I still have the pieces that are distracting me from my truth, from the truth and my perspective, it's a detriment. I played baseball growing up, like you mentioned, got into playing in college at a pretty high level. Played Samurai Pro for a year or two, and then when I got out of that, it's like, what's next? I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
And it was difficult. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Because as a kid, you don't like something, you just go to the next event, and the next, venture, if you will.
Well, you said something there that was very inspiring, very revealing. You were working on reinventing yourself. That's a process that many of us, most of us, will go throughout at some point, maybe once, maybe 10 times, 20 times for some people throughout our lives.
Yep.
A period of having to kind of rebuild, reinvent, redirect, and what we used to say in the Army, just adjust fire.
Right.
To the things that are happening around you or to the challenges that you face. And so that's one of a point that I'd like to bring up about facing challenges and overcoming them is identifying the problem and then making micro adjustments initially with more macro adjustments. Develop a plan with macro adjustments that will put you on the new trajectory to where you want to be.
So macro, big picture,
right?
Massive changes,
right?
30,000 foot view from the airplane,
and those take time to implement.
Sometimes decades.
But the micro
those are the day
adjustments can be made today, right now.
The entry point to those again is the awareness of my own interactions with the outside world, and the internal world. I mean, we don't want to get into the depths of the human mind or the soul or the personality in this yet. We might get to some of that later on, because there's a million things we can discuss as far as how we develop ourselves personally. Getting back to where we were a little earlier, though, the mask that we've got to take off, right? Once we get so ingrained in the patterns and the habits there, it's got to move to some sort of vulnerability with ourselves. And again, this is vulnerability that we want to identify in the next segment here. We've got to embrace that, got to. If we don't embrace the process of reinvention through vulnerability, we become stagnant, like you mentioned, and there's no real way to progress without sacrificing ourselves.
Well, and we're going to talk about vulnerability in the second half of today's show. It's a bad word.
You might disagree a little bit on this.
Yeah, we have conflicting opinions on this, and a lot of society. There's a heavy influence in society these days to have men be more vulnerable. I like to call it reframing strengths.
Okay.
Because a little less negative connotation than being vulnerable. Yeah. Because let's face it,
it is.
Yeah. You think about it in your relationship. Men are leaders in relationships, and a woman doesn't want to follow a vulnerable man.
Okay, so now we're talking about like personality characteristics versus being willing to once in a while be vulnerable. Let's hold that thought. Let's come back in just a minute. We'll be back in just a few after our break here.
We'll see you in 2 and 2.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Iron Tequila Podcast. We're your hosts, Tequila Poppy and Jordan Martis. We're starting our new series on the 5 truths that men need to hear now.
Number 1, nobody's coming to save you, and we know that's the truth. Number 2, you're not weak for struggling, you're weak for hiding it, which seems like a bit of an oxymoron. Number 3, confidence is not a feeling, it's a skill that can be developed.
On the 4th episode, we'll discuss what's killing men's edge. And then finally, we'll end up with helping you develop a plan to get started.
We'll cover this and a lot more in our upcoming series on the 5 truths that men need to hear now on the Iron and Tequila Podcast. Join us. Okay, we're back here for our second half. Tequila Poppy, I'm Jordan. This is the Iron and Tequila Podcast. Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Welcome back.
Don't like and subscribe and all that. I want to engage here.
Like
Please.
and subscribe.
Give us your opinion. I want some comments. I want to know what you like about our show, what you don't like. If you think we're full of shit, cool.
We're trying to develop an interactive show here,
Yeah,
and we want to feed off of interaction from our audience.
Yep, you
and
got
so
it.
we invite your comments.
Yeah, please. We'll discuss them. We'll bring them on as many as we can here. Let's get this rolling. This is something where it's not us just talking at you. We want to be able to bring on things that are important to you, our audience, that you want to hear about, that you think are valuable, and helping you develop and move to the next stage in your life. So, reframing strength. Tell me about reframing strength and vulnerability.
Well, there's been a big movement I've recognized in society over the last several years to encourage men to be vulnerable.
Okay.
And that encouragement includes having your feelings, talking about your feelings, revealing your feelings to your significant other. I don't know. Some may advocate revealing feelings at work, and I just, again, I mentioned earlier in this show, the first segment, that there's a time and a place for everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm not suggesting that there's not a time and a place for vulnerability. Mm-hmm. I'm just cautioning men who want to remain in their masculine frame to be deliberate with when they're vulnerable. There's
exercise caution.
Exercise caution. Approach with caution. Mm-hmm. I think about the roles in a traditional masculine-feminine relationship, mm-hmm. for example, mm-hmm. and women largely want to be led by a strong man. Yeah. A man who has a plan, who has a mission, who has a direction and goals.
Yep.
And the women largely, not all women, but largely they want to be led by a man who has strong convictions, a strong sense of right and wrong, strong direction and goal-oriented and motivated to accomplish the mission.
A lot of that, I think, is historically just time, evolutionarily. What I mean by that is that over the millennia that we've been here on this planet as whatever we were before the first hominid, and then as humans throughout time, females and males had specific roles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A man, I don't know if I really care what current society thinks is going on, but a man is unable to have a child, right? A woman,
it's true.
A woman has ovaries, a man does not. We're talking science here. And so, maintaining that, I don't want to buck the system, and that just seems ridiculous to me. There's a lot of history behind all this, trust me. Eventually we got to face that women and men are different from a
biological standpoint.
And that's evolution, right? We don't have a choice there.
Yeah. Men were
strong,
created to be hunters and gatherers, and the women were created to bear children,
raise them,
raise the children, continue the lifeline of the species,
maintain the status,
and
within the familial unit, mm-hmm. and the village, mm-hmm. if you will, because if that dissipates, the next village over is just going to kick your ass. And sorry, I need the biggest, strongest man to be out in front. That's all there is to it.
And so that's these evolutionary and biological reasons are why I maintain the belief that men are leaders in the relationships in society, largely.
Right.
Okay. I'm not taking anything away from women. I've been in the military. There are fine leaders that are female in the military.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that generally speaking, our male responsibility is to lead, and we have to lead from a position of strength.
position of power is what that ends up being.
Yeah.
You know, and for ourselves, we have a calling. I believe all men have a calling in life, right? And the one that starts to pull us and we don't actually like follow the lead, we're going to be pushed. You know, the concept here is, I don't know if I've heard anybody talk about this, that it's a concept of depression as a result of compression. All right? You have a calling, right? Let's say you want to start a business, for example. All right?
Okay.
And, you know, you've been in this industry. Let's say you've been in landscaping for 15 years. You know, my cousin did this. He's in the industry. Pedro, right? And he's a senior manager. He's wanted to start his own business for a long time, but it's just not there. You know, he just doesn't have I don't know if it's the security or what, or the backing,
mindset,
the
maybe
mindset,
the entrepreneurial
maybe he's not ready,
mindset.
you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But eventually it's there. And that calling is going to come along with compression, right? And that compression is going to push us from the bottom end. We're getting older, all right? Time is not anybody's friend when we're talking about moving towards success, right? The more time we waste, the less time there is for success and to move in that direction. So it makes a lot of sense that when we have a calling and we don't pursue it, we're going to feel guilty.
We're going to feel disappointed in
Shame.
ourselves. Yeah.
That's the compression. That's the stuff that's pushing us up from the bottom. And nowadays, it's so easy to follow the path of least resistance that we're talking about.
That's the easy path.
You know, and I don't know if that's vulnerability or if that's, you know, a refusal for responsibility, you know, somewhere in there. But we've got to face that ourselves, or else we're going to end up depressed. We're going to end up living in the parents' basement.
Well, and you know, to take that thought even further, you know, men end up emasculated. Not only depressed, but emasculated, and the emasculation process ends up in more depression, which it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
In a downward spiral.
That ends up in more depression, which is more emasculating, which is more depression, and
how do you get out of that?
How do you get out of that? Well,
going back to the beginning.
Back to the beginning. I'm going to say it again. Starts with a self-assessment.
Yep.
A self-assessment. You've got to be aware of your surroundings, aware of your contributions, aware of your shortcomings. And these are all the weaknesses and the challenges that men face that we talked about at the beginning of this episode. These are weaknesses. It's not a weakness to acknowledge those, because we all have them.
Yeah.
It's a weakness
to hide
it, ignore it, and not face it.
Yeah.
Because by sticking your head in the sand,
ostrich. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get out of that cycle. So you must confront it, and the first step in confronting it is acknowledging it.
Yep. If there's no acknowledgement, I believe the next step there, I don't know if we've clarified this a bunch, but I put a lot of thought in this over the years. I know you have too, is ownership.
Yeah.
You know,
you gotta be personally accountable.
The idea to me is that it's impossible to change anything that you don't own.
Yeah, you talked about in another segment that we did recently. You talked about the cows and the bison.
Yeah.
And how
Into
cows.
the storm. Yeah.
So they're very similarly biologically speaking.
Same genus, if you will, or whatever that is in the scientific realm.
Cow's reaction to a storm is to run away from the storm, and so they find themselves running until they die
with the storm. Literally with the storm. Right.
And the bison's mentality is to run into the storm, and with the goal of running through the storm as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And my challenge to men is to consider the bison approach to dealing with these challenges. Recognize them, confront them, develop a plan of action, and implement the plan, jump into action, and get to the other side as quickly as possible.
It feels like Grant Cardone's 10X or Tony Robbins, Massive Action Today.
Yeah.
Right? Part part of the challenge that I've run into in those circumstances when I'm feeling I'm weak and I'm trying to hide it is that I go take massive action and then I don't have any plan to back it up. Right? No progression forward.
Well,
I don't know if you've experienced that or anybody else has. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and so I'm a great starter. I love the first 10, 20, 30% of a project, the planning. But then when we get to time for execution and completion, it's like, oh, this is sad, and implementing my feelings there. Well, this is, wow, I'm just habitually childish.
Or an execution.
Yeah, and it's a childish mindset.
I am too. That is one of my weaknesses. I consider myself an idea guy. I have a lot of great ideas. I can get started on stuff and with great enthusiasm, and then I fall short on execution.
Yeah.
So what I've done is try to align myself with people who have execution as a strength.
Yeah. So fill your weaknesses.
Yeah. But I was able to do that and recognize that that's a solution to my problem because I conducted some self-assessment over the year.
Yep.
And I recognized, you know what? I'm a great idea guy. I'm a terrible implementer. And so
you're in sales. That's why we're in sales.
That's okay. Yeah. I get them in the door, and you figure out, the other people, the operations people, will take care of the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, but I wanted to make a point that strong men they overcome challenges by confronting them and adapting, and then developing a plan and pushing through the storm like the bison do.
Okay. Our call to action for you: if you're in a position where you are stagnant, you're stuck, you're disgusted, that's usually the indicating factor there that you want to move forward and you're fed up with the bullshit that's current and you're not going to take it any longer. Disgust. Stop hiding. Okay?
Yeah.
Figure out a way to stop hiding. And self-assessments are a great place to start there. The 5 personality traits. Go look those up. They spell ocean. Openness, neuroticism, and the others. I don't want to go
EANN. Yeah. Well, here's what I would say. Sit down today with a pencil and a piece of paper and write down positives and negative, plus and minus on one column, and be honest with yourself. And write down what your strengths are that you bring into the table, whether it's with respect to a job, a relationship,
your health,
your
mental
fortitude. If you're not where you want to be, sit down and conduct an honest self-assessment. Put the pluses down here and the minuses over here. And you know what? You're going to look back at that. It may take a few days to fill those columns out. Because you can't.
Take the time, please.
Take the time.
Take as much time as necessary.
But what you'll be able to do is to sit back and look at that, the data that you've gathered over the course of several days, a week, however long it takes you. And you'll be able to make some informed decisions at that point. And, just like I do, I recognize that I'm not a great implementer. And so I align myself with people who are great implementers. And that's how I'm able to accomplish the goals that I set for myself.
So we mentioned a minute ago that you and I are both, Tequila Poppy and I are both great starters, but not the best finishers. So why, this is just a question popping in my head while we're here, might as well face it. Why are 2 not so great finishers partnered up on a project like this? And for me, and I want to hear your answer to this too, for me, it was an opportunity to prove myself to myself, which was implementing an action plan to overcome my weaknesses that I am truthful about. Again, starting with, I'm a great starter. I can get things off the ground easily. I'm great with motivation and energy, and let's get it rolling. Once we're halfway into the project and energy and the enthusiasm wane at that point, it's very easy for me to go and pick up another shiny object.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me it was the value. I recognize the value of a partnership, of sharing of responsibilities, of mentorship, sounding board,
a voice of reason, if you will. I talked a little bit in another episode about a parrot on your shoulder. You know, we all have these voices in our heads that are trying to help us frame our version of reality.
Yep.
And, you know, I just recognize where my weaknesses are and seek partners who complement my weaknesses, who bring what I'm lacking to the table, so that, you know, two halves can make a whole at that point.
Yep. These are challenging things to assess. You know, it's been years and years that I've had an idea of doing something like this. You told me it's been a few years for you too, you know, with your book, your personal finance book. So, oh, by the way, all of the resources that we have available will be linked in the show notes here. IronandTequila.com. We have a few publications, workbooks, that type of thing, and that's going to keep expanding. So thank you. We appreciate you visiting that in the show notes here. One thing for me to finish up here, one of the action items that I've taken in the past, this is actually a great example of being a wonderful starter and not the best finisher. Jordan Peterson, one of my distance mentors, he has a program called self-authoring, and I've started it a few times, never finished it.
That a boy. Hey, at least you're consistent.
Well, and I'm honest about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a weakness of mine.
Yeah.
So I would rather not portray that I have all of my ducks in a row. I hate those little things sometimes because they go running all over the place like herding cats. It sucks. So understanding that my weakness is in finishing, you know, I'm going to dedicate myself to finishing that program here within our obligations to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'd like to post some of that too. If you're looking for ways to delve into creating your own story and reformatting your stuff, it's a great way to do it.
Nice,
so,
nice.
That's it for me here. Want to finish up?
Well, yeah, just a couple of real quick calls to action. You know, when you're not weak for struggling. You're weak for hiding it. So to get out of that rut, you got to stop hiding. You got to speak it. You got to own it. Get help. Train. Fix your problems. Build yourself. Seek mentorship. Seek education and wisdom from others, like our podcast, Iron and Tequila, will be here weekly.
Different things, yes.
And yeah, you're not in the struggle alone.
Yeah, that's it.
No one's coming to save you, like we talked about our last episode. No one's coming to save you, but you're not in the struggle alone either. Yep. If there's help out there, you just need to ask the right questions, the right people, and you'll get the help that you want.
You got it. Well said. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, go ahead. Next week.
Oh yeah, next week. Yes. Next week we're going to be moving into the third truth that men need to hear. Confidence isn't a feeling.
It's a skill.
Most of us relate to our feelings better than we do our skills because we've had our feelings our entire lives, but a skill is just developed over the last handful of years, maybe the last handful of days. So in that vein here, we're going to build a lot of skills at the same time. Let's not forget that confidence is another skill. You know, it is a feeling, yet we don't have to rely on our feelings because feelings are fleeting. They're something that are going to be all over the map. You know, we can't count on them. We're emotional beings living in a rational world, and the only way we can relate to it as children is through our feelings. So let's figure out how to turn that confidence from a feeling into a skill in our next episode.
Yep. And it's just like any habit. It is done through consistency and persistence and repetition.
Over time. Yep, you got it. You got it. So join us there. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.
Talk to you soon.